of the MMAOB Daily podcast. I'm your host, as always, Adam Martin, taking you through the latest in the world of mixed martial arts. Guys, follow me on Twitter at @AdamMartin, right there at the bottom of the screen. Check us out at MMAOddsbreaker.com. Like, share, subscribe. Go to our YouTube channel. Please check it out, guys. The more the merrier. Also check me out at bjpenn.com and MMARings.net. It's a pretty good show today coming up, guys. I'm going to be previewing tonight's Dana White's Contender Series 25 show. And there's a lot of news to talk about. Some really big names were in the news yesterday, and a couple of fight announcements to get to. So I'm going to start with the Dana White's Contender Series preview. Let's just go through that first. So decent looking card, actually. There's a couple of fights I'm really intrigued by tonight. Just 1 second here. There's some really good fights, actually. So we have odds for all of them, which is great. I have my preview up on MMAOddsbreaker.com if you want to check that out in written form. But let's go right through this card. So I'm going to start from the bottom, work my way up. First fight of the night, I really like this fight. Bantamweight bout between prospects Ricky Steele and Phil Caracappa. To me, this might actually be the best fight in the card. I'm very excited about this fight. These guys are two really, really good prospects. So let's talk about them. The odds first and foremost, it's a pick 'em, -110 each. So right now, people are kind of torn on who's going to win this fight, and I kind of agree with that. It's a very tough fight to call. Ricky Steele, he was on The Ultimate Fighter last year, and he actually had a good showing. He beat Suman Mokhtarian, and then he got hurt, and he hasn't fought since February 2018, so he's been out a while now. But he is undefeated. He's 5-0, and the win over Mokhtarian is not a bad win. That guy was in the UFC for a little bit. So I think this guy's actually a pretty solid fighter. He's only 31 years old, so he's a little bit older, but I still think this guy's a really good prospect, and I'm definitely curious to see how he returns from this injury. But this guy, Caracappa, I mean, he's very solid as well. 8-0, 27 years old. He's been great. I mean, look at his record. He's fighting in Ring of Combat over there on the East Coast. He has a really notable win, I guess, over Luis Godinez, former UFC fighter, who actually has a win over John Lineker, if you guys remember that fight from, I think, 2012. So that's a good win. And a lot of his wins are by decision, but the last fight he won by knockout in the third round. So I think this guy's actually really, really good. He is the champion in Ring of Combat. He's coming to the UFC now. I don't know. This is a tough fight to call. I initially favored Steele a little bit, and I guess I still do, but I think Caracappa has a really good chance to win this fight. I think the people that bet him at plus money got a good bet there because I do think it is close to a pick 'em. So I guess I'll still go with Steele. Very, very, very slightly, like 51% chance to win, but this is a close fight. It can go either way. And I personally wouldn't feel comfortable betting on this fight because I think both these guys are really good prospects, and I wouldn't be surprised if either of these guys ended up in the UFC eventually. Next up, we have a women's strawweight bout between Nicole Desegni and Mallory Merton. The odds right now, Martin -335 and Desegni +275, and I think that's about right. Mallory Merton, she's 25 years old. She's 4-2, but her last two fights were wins in Invicta by stoppage and in LFA as well. So she has good experience fighting in a good promotion in Invicta. She also fought Macy Barber in LFA in 2017, lost that fight. So that's obviously not a bad loss. That was her last loss. But she's looked really good lately in Invicta. Takes on Desegni here, who is a member of team. She's been fighting all over, actually. Fought in Cage Warriors, EFC Africa, Brave. She won her last fight by submission, but before that was knocked out. Prior to that, had 5 straight wins. Definitely some promise here for sure. She's 31 years old. She's a decent prospect. I think she's got the look the UFC wants. Just, like, take a look at her Instagram, man. I mean, she's definitely popular, that's for sure. I just don't think this is a good matchup for her. I think Martin's got more experience against better competition. I mean, well, Desegni does have more fights, but I just think Martin's got better experience against better competition and better promotions, to be quite frank. So I think Martin wins. I think the odds are right in this one. I think she's going to win decision. We'll see. I mean, if she gets a finish, she'll probably get signed in the UFC, but I think it's going to be the decision. Next up, we have Desmond Torres against Steve Garcia. This is a bantamweight bout. Steve Garcia missed weight. He came in, I think, 139. So that's definitely something to be noted. Right now, the odds are Torres -130, Garcia +110. Interesting fight again. Two prospects, I guess. Torres, 7-1 record, 22 years old, very young. He's a member of Team Oyama, which is obviously a good camp. Won 5 straight fights. Fought in Bellator, fought in King of the Cage, fought in LFA. His last 3 wins are by stoppage. So this guy is definitely good, especially on the ground where he's submitting a lot of fighters. His level opposition hasn't been great, though. Steve Garcia, he's 27 years old. He's 93. He's a member of Jackson Wink. His last 2 wins came in the Jackson Wink promotion. Before that, lost 2 straight fights, including a loss to Joe Warren in Bellator, because this guy actually fought in Bellator 6 times. He went 4-2 in Bellator, but his last fight against Joe Warren in 2017 was a loss. Actually, he's fought 7 times Bellator. He also beat Sean Bunch back in 2013. So he does have more experience. He has a win over Kin Moore. He's a decent fighter as well. His last 2 wins came against guys with a lot of experience. I wouldn't be surprised if he won. The weight miss does concern me a lot. I personally lean towards Torres ever so slightly here, but Garcia's experience definitely could come into play here. So another fight where I personally don't feel too comfortable betting on, and we've seen a lot of upsets. I talk about it every week, but there's so many upsets. Next up, we have a light heavyweight bout between Marcus Bergago and Jamal Pogues. This one should be interesting as well. Pogues minus 140, Bergago plus 120. Definitely an interesting fight. So Pogues is the favorite here. Pogues is 6-2 record, 23 years old. They call him the Stormtrooper. He's won his last 2 fights by knockout, including a head kick knockout a few years ago. He has a cup of coffee in Bellator as well. He lost to Jordan Jung last year. He also fought for Gladiator Challenge. So a California guy. Level opposition has been pretty low, though, for the most part. So definitely, obviously, a concern there. Taking on, like I mentioned, Marcus Bergago, who is 11-0. He's undefeated. He's only 23 as well. So he's very young. Both these guys are young. This guy has looked really good lately. 3 straight wins by knockout. I think this fight can go either way personally, and I personally I would favor the underdog here, Bergago. I think this is a good spot to take a dog personally, so I think a plus 120 there could be some value. I think this is either a pick 'em or you could lean toward Bergago. The fact he's undefeated, in my opinion, is definitely a good thing. He never lost, hasn't shown any flaws yet in this game. We'll see though. Light heavyweights, never know what can happen. But again, I talk about this every week. There's so many upsets, especially it seems like in the light heavyweight fights on this show. There's been a bunch of upsets, so we'll see what happens there, but it should be an interesting fight. I definitely see a stoppage in that fight. And, of course, the prop on that happening is minus 475. So no value there. You got to take a side here if you want to bet on it. And, again, I would lean towards the underdog ever so slightly. And finally, main event of the evening, and this is the fight I think most people are looking forward to, although personally I still think that Steel Caracappa fight is the one I'm looking forward to. But Phillip Rowe against Leon Shabazzian. Leon Shabazzian, minus 210, Rowe, plus 175. So if you've heard of Leon Shabazzian's last name, of course, his brother Edmund fights in the UFC. So he's another guy training under Edmund Shabazzian. He's 23 years old. And he's definitely a good prospect. Again, 7-1 record, all his wins by stoppage. So this guy's solid. Unlike his brother, who's more of a knockout artist, this guy's more of a submission artist. His last win, look at the guy's record, 1840. I mean, that's not the guy Daniel McWilliams that he beat. It's not obviously a great fighter, but that guy has like almost 60 fights, and he beat him by submission in the first round, 28 seconds. So I think this guy's pretty special, personally. He takes on Phillip Rowe here, who is 29 years old, 6-2 record. He's actually on a 5-fight win streak. His level of opposition has not been good, fighting guys that I personally have never even heard of. So I like Shabazzian here, like everyone else is going to like. He's minus 210, but I think he is probably the most likely winner on the whole card. I think people maybe will parlay Merton and Shabazzian. I just checked, and that's like minus 110. So that's basically a pick 'em for those 2 favorites to win, and I do think they have a good chance to win. So we'll see what happens, but I definitely am looking forward to this card. I think there's going to be some good fights, probably some upsets we didn't see coming, but I don't think in the main event we'll see an upset. I do think the favorite's going to win this fight, and it should be a pretty good one. All right, next up, we have a couple pieces of news here. Odds were released for Nate Diaz versus Jorge Masvidal, and they opened as a pick 'em. Bet Online opened the odds at minus 110 each. Right now, we have Masvidal minus 115, Diaz minus 105. Close fight. I mean, first off, it's not booked yet, so there's going to be time until we have to decide who we're going to pick here. But there's definitely a good chance this fight's going to be booked. I think the fans want to see it. The UFC wants it. Dana White likes it. The fighters want it. Just makes too much sense. I do think there's a really good chance we're going to see this fight booked, which sucks for Leon Edwards because he wanted Masvidal, but I think this fight makes way more sense. It's a tough fight to call. I would definitely lean towards Masvidal a little bit, so I like the early action here. I think it makes sense, but Diaz looked amazing against Pettis, and maybe he's rejuvenated after a 3-0 layoff. But again, you can't discount the last 2 fights Masvidal's had. Those brutal knockout wins over Till and Askren. Those are amazing wins. So I personally lean towards Masvidal. He's been more active. I think he's the better fighter, but it's a close fight to call. And the odds, I pick them at the open. They seem about right, although personally I do lean slightly towards Masvidal, although fans are always betting on Diaz. So it's going to be curious. It's going to be interesting to see how the line plays out. I'm curious to see if the UFC actually does book it, because when it does, I expect this line to start being bet on like crazy. Jon Jones is back in the news, and this time Kurt Angle is actually on Ariel Helwani's show, and he said that Brock Lesnar wants to fight Jon Jones, and Jones responded and said he's going to embarrass Lesnar if they fight. He said he's too slow for him. This is a fight I think a lot of people wanted to see for a long time. I still want to see this fight. And Brock obviously is retired now. He hasn't fought in forever, and he hasn't, he hasn't said he wants to come back. I think he is retired for the most part, but I think the prospect of fight Jon Jones is pretty big. I mean, we thought he was going to fight Dale Cormier. That didn't happen. I just think the Jones fight would probably be the biggest fight in UFC history. I can't think of a bigger fight. It'd be a massive, massive fight for the fans, for the promotion, for everyone involved. Do I think it's going to happen? No, because I don't think Lesnar will ever fight again. I just think he's done. I think that I don't think he can pass the drug test, to be quite frank. So I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, Jones obviously has problems with his drug test too, but I think Jones wants this fight. I just don't see Brock coming back because I don't think I'm passing his drug test, and I just don't see him returning to the octagon. Although, man, this is a dream fight for sure. And if it happened, I mean, I'd have to favor Jones like everyone else would. The guy is amazing, but Brock has the size advantage, got probably the power advantage, the strength advantage. Definitely would be an interesting fight if it did happen. I'd like to see Brock return. Just the fan inside me would like to see him return because every time Brock fights, it's a big event. But the guy hasn't won a fight in 10 years almost, and I don't know. Just don't see him coming back. Another guy that I personally don't see coming back, but he says he wants to return is Dan Hardy. Dan Hardy apparently says that he wants to return to the UFC, and he's entered the USADA testing pool. I don't have to think about this either. I mean, Dan Hardy, talk about a guy who hasn't won a fight in forever. Dan Hardy hasn't won or fought since 2012. That's a long time ago. His last win was against Meerschaert. That was the same card Stefan Struve knocked out Stipe Miocic in. So a long time ago. Just can't see it happening. He obviously has heart issues. That's why he retired in the first place. He hasn't fought in 7 years. And reading about what he said was basically USADA needs him to be in certain spots when they do their testing, and he says he's all over the place with his current schedule. So I just think that this isn't going to happen. Listen, Dan Hardy's a competitor. I respect Dan Hardy. He had a good career in the UFC. I think for a guy that was very one-dimensional, he was basically just a striker, no wrestling whatsoever. So he had a decent career, but I don't think he needs to fight again. He has obviously the commentary thing going. I think he's got a lot going on in his life that's good, and I don't think he needs to fight again, especially with the heart condition he has. So personally, I don't want to see this to happen, but it's possible that if he's really adamant about it and UFC says he can fight and they book him a fight and he clears his medicals, it could happen. I just don't want to see it happen. A couple of fight announcements are definitely happening here. This fight's amazing. Eryk Anders will be taking on Gerald Meerschaert at UFC Tampa. So Eryk Anders is moving back down to middleweight to take on Meerschaert. Eryk Anders, 32 years old, 12-4 record. He is 4-4 in the UFC, but he's won his last two fights. He won his last fight by knockout over Vinicius Moreira. Great performance. I mean, that guy's chin is very questionable for sure, but it was a great performance. It broke that 3-fight losing streak he had where he just wasn't looking good at all. The fight against Khalil Roundtree, it was a brutal, brutal fight. He got knocked down, I think, 5 times in that fight. It was nasty. So he's coming back here, taking on Gerald Meerschaert. Gerald Meerschaert coming off a really good win in his last fight over Trevin Giles. Meerschaert, 31 years old. He is 29-11 in his career, so 40 fights, a lot of experience. He is 5-3 in the UFC. Won his last fight. Before that, lost 2 straight. Guy finishes his fights, 27 wins by stoppage out of 29 career wins, but he's also been finished a lot of times, 9 losses by stoppage, including 8 submissions. Eryk Anders is not really a submission guy, more of a knockout artist. Gerald Meerschaert's only been knocked out once. That was against Thiago Santos 2 years ago, but there's definitely a chance here he could get knocked out. I lean towards Eryk Anders a little bit here. I think the physicality, the athleticism will come into play, but you know what? He's been so inconsistent in the UFC. It's very hard to put your money in Eryk Anders and feel good about it. So I personally, this wouldn't be a fight that I'd be interested in betting on, but of course I need to see a line that is taking place at UFC Tampa in October. And finally, UFC China gets one more fight. Jung will be taking on Khadis Ibragimov. So Jamal Hill is actually injured. He was supposed to fight Jung. Jung, 31 years old, South Korean fighter, 10-2 record. He's won his last 9 fights in a row, all by knockout or submission, except for one. So the guys obviously look good. I mean, but again, he's fighting very low-level fighters over in Heat and in South Korea. And I'm not sure how he's going to fare in the UFC, although he's getting, a winnable fighter against Khadis Ibragimov. 24 years old, 8-0 record. He hasn't fought great-level competition. He does have a wins over Stefan Putz, who's, a decent fighter by Bulldog choke. Most of his wins, the last 5 have come by stoppage. One was a DQ, but still, this should be an interesting fight. I mean, this guy is a good prospect, but coming in on short notice, that's definitely something to be concerned about. 2 good prospects, I think, on paper, but we'll see how they play out in the UFC. You really never know. It's too bad that Jamal Hill was injured. I was really looking forward to seeing that fight. And I want to talk about this card for a second. The UFC China card. Dana White's talked about this. He says that there's a lot. I mean, we all know there's a lot going on. If you follow the news, there's a lot going on over there in that side of the world, and it's possible that this card might not happen. It could be moved. Dana White says it's going to happen, even if he's the only person there. But if the fighters are being put at risk, I can't see it happening. We do remember a few years ago there was a card canceled, I think in Singapore. So it wouldn't shock me if this was canceled or moved. But as of right now, the card won't take place. That's, of course, main evented by Jessica Andrade against Weili Zhang. And the odds for that fight have been moving a little bit. So I'll pull this up. That's the only odd, though, I think, for the whole card. And double check on that. Where is this? I know Andrade is the favorite. My best fight odds isn't loading, unfortunately. But anyways, yeah, here we go. Andrade, minus 185, Zhang, plus 160. So, yeah, I mean, I do favor Andrade, but I guess I'm not surprised by Zhang getting some love because she's definitely a solid prospect. And I should have mentioned UFC 242, the complete odds are out for that card. So definitely take a look at that when you want to. I'm just going to see if I've missed anything here. Don't think so. I think I got everything I want to talk about today. Yeah, I think that's about it. So that's all I want to mention, guys. Appreciate you guys tuning in as always. I'll be back tomorrow breaking down what happened tonight, the Contender Series, and all the other latest news in the world of mixed martial arts. Appreciate you guys once again. Check me out at MMAOB, MMAOddsbreaker.com, BJPen.com, MMARings.net. Those are my homes. Guys, I'll be back tomorrow morning talking about what happened last night. Have a good day, guys, and I'll see you soon.